Comic Boom.
Hey guys, Comic Boom here to review Birds of Prey One Shot by Brian Azzarello and beautifully drawn by Manuela Lapacino. Guys, this is what the Birds of Prey movie should have been based on. This story by Brian Azzarello, it's like it basically took place right after the Suicide Squad movie, because it deals with a Harley Quinn coming off a bad relationship with the Joker's gang, looking for Harley, wanting to get revenge on Harley, or at least take her back and kidnap her and bring her back to the Joker. And we also have a Black Canary, a Dinah Lance, who is a former agent of either the FBI or Argus. It's never made clear. Steve Trevor is still an agent of Argus or the FBI. Again, the agency is not really made clear. We have the Huntress, who is, of course, de facto, well, she is a vigilante. And we have Renee Montoya, who in this case, on the surface, appears to be a police officer who decides to maybe engage a little bit with potential corruption, but with an aim of getting the local police enforcement and the FBI to do something to combat drug sellers, or basically drug traffickers, represented by the De La Morte gang, which are infiltrating Gotham City by introducing tainted fentanyl drugs laced with fentanyl in order to do that on their first shipment, to create a bunch of chaos, and then thereafter introduce a better drug that isn't tainted by fentanyl, which will increase their market share. It's part of their sort of like a marketing ploy, so to speak, in order to get more people to take their drugs, or buy their drugs. Now, what's great about this issue that I highly recommend it, is that it's a one shot. I'm so glad it's a one shot. It's definitely Black Label. It's sexually provocative, but yet there's really no nudity. But it's suggestive. There is some swearing in it, but it's very appropriate. I love the character of Harley Quinn. How she essentially talks to herself, and you can tell she's a little bit schizophrenic. I love how Brian Azzarello distinguishes between, or he displays and shows the struggle that Harley has in having a conversation with herself, essentially talking to her sane self, sane sane Dr. Quinzel talking to insane Harley Quinn, and that conversation they have as Harley comes to terms with the fact that her relationship with the Joker is over. You can tell this was meant to take place after the Suicide Squad movie, because Harley is still wearing the Daddy's Little Monster shirt and she eventually discards that shirt as a symbolic way of ending her relationship with the Joker. And later on, as the story progresses, you see that she is still wearing that same shirt, but without the moniker Daddy's Little Monster on it. It's just a red and white shirt. That character journey that Harley's on really underscores her journey throughout the story. Meanwhile, we have Black Canary, who the story starts off with Black Canary, Dinah Lance, getting a phone call from one of her former flings that she had when she worked for the agency or Argus, and this fling, his name is Eric Lagoon, and Eric Lagoon calls her while she's essentially in her apartment, and Eric is about to be killed by the De La Morte gang, and he just wants to talk with her, and it's almost like he knows he's going to die, but he wants to tell Dinah Lance that he loved her, but he doesn't really come out and say it because he's kind of a jerk, and frankly, Black Canary never really liked him much to begin with, but he is rather gruesomely killed, and his murder, his decapitation, again, which is graphically wonderfully drawn by Manuela Lapacino, it really, that sets off the action, and that murder of this agent, because he's a deep cover agent, he works for the agency with Steve Trevor that Dinah Lance used to work for, and now Dinah Lance no longer works for that agency and decided to give it up, and is a singer and is a lead singer in a band, and the band's name is never really mentioned. There's a lot of things that aren't really mentioned here overtly. We don't know what agency Steve Trevor works for. It's not specifically called Argus. It's implied it's the FBI, but it's also implied that he's something else as well. Now, there are some great scenes here. There's some great scenes of humor. There's a great scene a hilarious scene where Harley is moping around and she's all depressed, trying to come to terms with her breakup with the Joker, and she walks by a building that is being scoped out by the Huntress, and inside the building, the De La Morte gang is essentially decapitating. They decapitate an individual by the name of Kimji Jim, who is a drug trafficker, and they decapitate him and they throw his head on the street, and the head drops right in front of Harley Quinn. It's quite hilarious. Meanwhile, Harley Quinn at the time, she's trying to figure out what she wants to do. She wants to maybe explore becoming a good person again, and the head falls right in front of her, and she decides, well, maybe she'll go into this building, and she figures it's a sign, and of course, it's obviously she's crazy. I mean, she reacts. It's Harley Quinn. She's crazy. She's insane. How many people would react so calmly to a decapitated head dropping in front of them? Well, naturally, Harley Quinn would. And so she goes into the building and she confronts the Della Marta gang. I'm pronouncing that wrong, but I don't care. She confronts the Della Marta gang. They got these facial tattoos all over them. And she ends up basically attacking them, and the Huntress gets in the fray. Harley Quinn escapes, and just as the Huntress is about to swing in, Harley Quinn jumps on the Huntress. The Huntress is trying to swing in from the street, and Harley jumps on the Huntress, and they end up falling to the ground, and they end up taking off, and Harley Quinn incapacitates the Huntress and ties the Huntress up. Meanwhile, and then they're found by Renee Montoya. Renee Montoya puts a gun to Harley's head. There's some great dialogue scenes here. Meanwhile, they're attacked. Then, in the middle of all this, they're attacked by Joker's gang that is desperately looking for Harley, and they're really hoping the leaders of the head honchos of Joker's gang. They're really hoping that Harley will just come nicely, because they don't want to create a bunch of chaos to apprehend her. But of course, it's Harley, and they know it's going to be difficult. But so while this whole Della Marta gang is walking around Gotham enforcing their drug trafficking dominion, we have the Joker's gang trying to follow around Harley Quinn, and Harley Quinn finds herself embroiled now in this drug war, or this drug war essentially between the Della Marta gang and them trying to traffic successfully through Renee Montoya, who is sort of an undercover cop, or deliberately allowing herself to be corrupted a little bit in order to bring them to justice, because she wants to put Della Marta, she wants to get the attention of the feds, and Renee Montoya feels that the only way that she can get the attention of the feds is to basically say, you know what, enough, guys. I'm going to, if I have to become a corrupt cop and engage in some drug trafficking a little bit just to get the attention and bring this Della Marta gang to Gotham, just so you can take them out, I'm going to do that. And that's essentially what she does. I'm oversimplifying it, but in the midst of all this scheme, we got Black Canary, who is dealing with her own struggles. The character work here by Azzarello is really, really well done. He does a great job with Harley coming out of what I'm sure has got to be the movie version of Harley. Does such a good job with Harley's personality and how Harley talks to herself and converses with others, and even how Harley dissects a situation. She can be crazy one minute and then surprisingly astute and insightful the next. There's one great scene where she actually explains to Dinah Lance, the Black Canary, and to the Huntress why Renee Montoya, why she's not as corrupt as you might think she is, because she's dissected the situation psychologically with her skills, with her sane side, Dr. Harleen Quinzel. It's very well done. Meanwhile, you got the complexity of Dinah Lance, who not only does she have some mixed feelings about the one night stand she had with Eric Lagoon, who was the agent, the Argus or FBI agent that was killed at the beginning, but she also has some struggles with the fact that one of her band members by the name of Byron, she has some drug struggles of her own, and ends up being the victim of a drug overdose, and you really see the emotion. The sonic cry takes on a whole new meaning in that scene where Dinah Lance comes to terms with some of the failings of her bandmate, her drummer, and it really hits home, and it's very, very well done. And the art by Emanuela Lapacino really conveys those emotions in the various scenes. It's very well done. I really like that the action the action here is fantastic. Action-packed scenes, very well choreographed, and they're quick, and this story does not drag. I started reading this, and it's a lot of pages. I think it's felt like 100 pages, but it's a lot of pages, but really a good story, entertaining. I so wish, again, I'm going to say again, I wish this was the movie. I wish the plot line in this comic was the movie for Birds of Prey. It would have been a much better movie. And as I said when I reviewed Birds of Prey, I really wish they wouldn't have had Cassandra Cain in that Birds of Prey movie. And really, when you see this, how well this story is written, you can see that this was a story that was made. This would have been an excellent movie, an excellent plot line for the movie, and it would have really, the action sequences are far superior than the ones that are in the movie. The characters are far more interesting than the characters as they were portrayed in the Birds of Prey movie. And I enjoyed the Birds of Prey movie. Don't get me wrong. I gave it relatively high praise, and because I enjoyed it for what it was. But this, they should have let up Brian Azzarello. They should have maybe read Brian Azzarello's script for this comic book, this one shot, as opposed to maybe letting the Margot Robbie, as opposed to letting Margot Robbie perhaps have so much say into the storyline for the movie. But this is a really well plotted out story. Very well. This is a very well plotted out comic book. The Huntress, her character is really good. There's a lot of sexuality in this comic book, as you would expect. I was expecting more nudity. There wasn't any nudity really, but there was a hot sauna moment. There's a moment where Dinah Lance meets up with the Huntress and is surprised to find Harley in their old Birds of Prey headquarters, and they're in a hot sauna. They're having a hot sauna, and everyone looks gorgeous and sexy. I mean, one thing about Manuela Lapacino, she's beautiful. She's gorgeous at drawing. She's excellent at drawing gorgeous visuals, gorgeous women. I mean, she draws beautiful women. I mean, there's some issues of Wonder Woman that really stand out that I remember Manuela Lapacino drawing, and I believe there was even an issue of Bombshells that I recall her drawing was excellent. She's a really amazing artist, and it shows here. I really like the fact that they do not ignore Harley's affiliation with the Suicide Squad in this comic, because it's established that Harley, in fact, successfully manages to complete her tenure as a member of the Suicide Squad. That she is literally released on good behavior. And Amanda Waller, there's a flashback where Amanda Waller releases Harley Quinn because she served her time, and that Amanda Waller actually kept her word and released Harley Quinn because of all her service to the Suicide Squad, but then throws a pot shot in saying, you know, you're a loser, Harley, you're always going to be insane, you're always going to be crazy. But she does leave, and I like that. It's a good callback. Again, another strong sense that this has a lot of connections to the movie in a much more sensible and easy to follow manner than the actual Birds of Prey movie itself. Another positive aspect of this comic book is just how all the character arcs come together. All of these characters, for different reasons, don't really like each other. There's tension between Huntress and Dinah Lance. There's definitely tension between Renee Montoya and Harley. There is an uncomfortable sort of friendship that slowly evolves from resentment into an uncomfortable friendship between the Huntress and Harley. Black Canary comes to respect Harley Quinn, and at one point even says, you know what, you're not as crazy as you originally seemed. You really get a sense of how this team cemented and came together under these extraordinary action-packed circumstances. This is a story that really works, and at the end here, it builds up in the third act, because you can really break down this comic book into 3 acts, just like you could a movie, as I say again. And by the time you get to the end of the third act, when there's the great big battle sequence that's occurring, it's really 2 moments. It's when Harley leaves the primary action and is ultimately chased by the Joker's gang again, while she has the De La Marte gang that she's dealing with, and they have a proclivity for chopping heads off. There's the best car chase scene. I haven't seen a car chase scene in a comic book this well done in a long time. There's a great car chase scene. Again, I swear to God, this is meant for the big screen, the way this comic book reads out. I highly recommend this Birds of Prey comic. It's just so much fun to read. If there was ever any evidence that Brian Azzarello was meant to write a Birds of Prey series, or at least give him 12 issues. Give him another 12, give him a 21st, give him 2 years on Birds of Prey. Let him have some fun with this franchise, because he does a really good job here, and I really enjoy his interpretation of the characters, how he sort of combines the movie version of Harley Quinn into the comic book versions of the characters, but they're not the same. This is out of continuity, but nonetheless, I would have no objection to our mainstream DC continuity being strongly influenced by the Azzarello Birds of Prey version that I read in this comic book. Overall, guys, I highly recommend this Birds of Prey. I would encourage you all to pick it up. Buy it digitally if it's not at your local comic shop, or if your comic book shop is closed down during the pandemic. It's a lot of fun. You'll enjoy it. And there is a confrontation between the Joker and Harley Quinn at the end. You're going to have to pick up the comic to see how that turns out. And until next time, guys, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter at Metropolis40. And Comic Boom, out.